What's up, beautiful people? I am so excited for another one of these chit chats. This is where I get raw and real. And I mean, I'm raw and real in all of my content, but like, I'm so happy to be doing these because you guys always seem to enjoy them. And we're actually going to be putting them on a podcast platform. We're going to put them on Substack, which is my newsletter platform, but we're also going to have them on Spotify too. So if you like to just kind of listen, you don't have to watch, then you can always stream it there. I am also 9 months pregnant. If you're watching, you can clearly see that. And today's topic kind of has something to do with this. I think I've gotten a lot of perspective since I've been pregnant, but I'm really excited because today I'm talking about being a boss versus being an influencer and kind of some of those differences that I have even noticed for myself. And it's very telling and it causes you to be very honest when you are an influencer who has boss-like qualities, but you really want to kind of get all the way there. Now, there is a difference between being a boss who has a business that you are currently running on your own and at some point it is able to be passed on to someone else or passed down to your kids, or you can scale it and you don't really have to be the forefront of the business anymore. Like, there are so many different types of businesses. And I do think that influencing is a type of business, but I don't think that influencers and bosses or like entrepreneurs are necessarily the same thing. And it's very honest of me to say that for a while, I feel like I've been skewing more on the influencer side than on the entrepreneur side, simply because scaling when you are the face of your business is very difficult, especially if you didn't have that in mind when you were first starting. And now, like, being in the creator space, it has been so inundated with people who are able to work for themselves, who are able to make their own schedule, pick their own brand deals, do their own thing. And it does, like, you are your own boss to an extent. But there are also drawbacks to that. And I've been talking about this a lot in my content lately, just because right now, since I am 9 months pregnant, it has caused me to think about, like, when I take a maternity leave, like, how do I do that? Like, how do I take 6 to 8 weeks off? Now, that is the difference between, like, if you have a 9 to 5 or like a full-time corporate job. It's so much easier to compartmentalize job from home when there's that separation. But when you are like an influencer or even an entrepreneur, a lot of those lines get really, really blurred. And for me, I'm like, okay, I want to take time off. I want to spend time with my family. And it causes you to look at the structure of your business or your brand or your influence and see how realistic something like that is. And I think whether you're a boss or not, like, whether you're like an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur or not, like, taking time away from your business can be difficult because you're really kind of in the trenches trying to make it happen. But I think right now I'm kind of like, okay, if I wanted to do this again, like, what would I do differently? Or how would I make this more sustainable for me? And so it really had me thinking, and it's interesting because I watched a video. I mean, not a video. The pregnancy brain is awful right now, by the way. So if I just so happen to lose my train of thought mid-sentence, that is why. But I actually watched a show on Netflix called Selling Manhattan, and it was so funny because when I saw the little thumbnail on Netflix, I was like, oh, that's the guy from YouTube. And I have watched Ryan Serhant's videos on YouTube several times over the last, I don't know how long. And I loved him. I was like, oh my gosh, he just has it. He has the charisma. He has all like his content is incredible. So I didn't even know he had this huge real estate brokerage in New York City and was just this big shot, like, real estate powerhouse until I watched the show. So I got sucked into the show on Netflix. It's so good. If you haven't watched it, you have to watch it. It's not like one of those trashy real estate shows, like it's some really bad ones on that I still kind of get sucked into, not gonna lie. But this one, it really helped me understand, and like it gave me some perspective on leadership just from watching how Ryan Serhant kind of leads his business and his team. And I really kind of picked up on a lot of things that he does based off of what they show on. Obviously, this is like 8 episodes of like 40 minutes of their, their lives. But it really helped me think about some things that bosses just do differently. And by no means am I recording this episode to put down influencers. Like, I literally am an influencer. But I do think that both influencers and bosses, I'm using the term bosses, but it's like true entrepreneurs, I think that they both need some of each other's qualities. And watching Selling Manhattan really showed me that you do need both. You need to have the influence and you need to have the entrepreneurial mindset. It's really difficult to have one without the other. And a business with no influence is never going to grow. And an influencer or influence without strategy and without that like business acumen is going to fizzle off once the trends die, once the relevancy dies. So you kind of need that balance. You really do need that balance. And I really enjoyed the show. And I have some differences between being a boss and being an influencer. And a lot of them are drawn from Selling Manhattan. So let's get into them. The first one is taking complete control of your time. And right now I'm recording this today. We had a photo shoot. I am prepping for like baby. We had an event to go to, and it is 9:54 p.m. as I'm recording this because I'm like, you know what, Erin, I have to get this done. I committed to it, and I need to really start controlling my time. And how easy is it for us to be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Let me sit down. Let me, turn this show on, even though I did watch Like My Hand, but like, let me turn this show on. Let me just like, let the rest of the day be done because I don't feel like it. And what I realized on that show, and it's not just this show, but like the show is the most relevant thing that I watched that has kind of sparked some inspiration in me. But one of the things that I noticed about Ryan is that he wastes no time. Like his routine is so strict. It's down to the minute. He follows something called the 1,000-minute rule, which he has a YouTube video on. But in the show, you can see him like in the car. He has a driver so that he can work in the car, take calls in the car, have meetings in the car, where he has some of his agents in the car on the way to a showing with him. And it's so interesting how, we look at things like cooking and driving, and that's just a part of our regular life. But these like really big entrepreneurs who have these big businesses, they look at driving as wasted time. They look at cooking as wasted time. They look at all of these like laundry, shopping, talking on the phone. And it sounds very like, okay, what if I like to drive, or what if I like to cook? And that's fine. I'm not saying that every boss needs to delegate every single part of their lives. But what I am saying is that if you want to make the time, you can. And whether that means like at some point, I'm like, I want to have a private chef. I like to cook. I might like to cook once a week though. I would rather that than have to constantly think about, okay, what am I cooking? Got to go to the grocery store, got to get the ingredients, got to prep, meaning like I got to clean all the vegetables. I got to wash the meat. I got to do all of this stuff. Then I got to cook the actual meal. Then I got to clean up after I cook. And thinking about doing that multiple times a day or prepping for a whole week for like 4 hours, it just sounds like time being spent. And especially when you don't like something, it's just like, how at some point in my life can I delegate this? And even if it's not far off, like how can I delegate this now? Is there a meal prep service that is affordable that meets my health goals that I can start using now if I really dread cooking that much. Like starting to think in ways that aren't just kind of hoarding everything we're making. And I think that's a big difference with being a boss, is that you are eager to delegate. So that's the first thing that I learned just by watching how he moves, is being eager to delegate. Second thing is I really realized how important it is to have influence and to have business skills. Okay, so the rest of this episode is actually going to be on my Substack, in my newsletter, where I do more long form chit chat, casual videos just like this. So I hope you will meet me over there on Substack to finish the rest of the video, because I share some more great tips on things that I've learned from just watching different bosses versus influencers, and the fact that I'm not trying to dog influencers, by the way. Like, you need both. So in the rest of the video, I share some really interesting ways that influencing and being a boss are able to be merged together, and just kind of my personal take on how I'm doing that in my own life. So if you're interested in my simple and hot take on these types of topics, then make sure you go subscribe to my Substack newsletter, and I will see you over there. Bye for now. Oh.